demonstrate integrity, and that you can't be compromised by relationships with people, or else the players in the rest of the league will, I think, not accept that, and I think you would damage your credibility as an analyst and a pundit.
Yeah, and you just completely blank him. And I think you also blanked your brothers, so there's obviously a very competitive spirit within your heart. So now you're on TV, was it hard to adjust to a different role, to be impartial on national television?
It wasn't difficult, because I think pretty much when fans watch football matches, they're very intelligent and they know what they're watching, and you can't lie to them, you can't joke with them, you can't really sort of pull the wool over their eyes and say, well, that was a good goal if it wasn't a good goal, or that was a bad mistake if it wasn't a bad mistake by a defender. So I insult the fans' intelligence, because football fans, they know the game really well, they watch the game, they're detailed about it. So I think you have to make sure that you basically say what you see, and that you try and give some insight into how it's happened. I think that the idea that you would try and favour one team is difficult. I think I've probably been too hard on Manchester United at times because of my allegiance to them. There have been moments. I remember Robin van Persie scoring a late free kick at the Etihad against Manchester City with a winner. And I remember feeling like goosebumps and tingling with excitement, but then having to compose myself to be able to speak. But you're right, when I played football for Manchester United, everybody else was the enemy, whether it was my brother, whether it was ex-teammates. We had to win, we must win, and no one could compromise that, and no one could stand in our way.
Are you surprised at how your relationship with Jamie Carragher has gone down with viewers, not just in England, but across the globe, and on social media, your YouTubes, Facebook, Instagrams, and how people actually look forward to seeing you two together now?
Like him, he didn't like me either. It's what happens. You finish playing football, you change, you develop relationships, you soften a little bit, you haven't got the badge on anymore on your shirt. We can't tackle for the ball anymore or jump for a header, so the edge goes and the anxiety goes, the tension, if you like, goes from our relationship. So I think that's the main thing. I think that on television it was always a risk to Sky to bring us together, but it's paid off, and I think what he has is honesty and credibility with how he speaks about the game, and I'm the same. So I think we both love our clubs, we're both passionate about our clubs, and I think the fans like that, and you can see that.
Yeah, and just a wee bit, because I think initially people actually struggled to understand it. He had to.
He had to. I mean, people in Liverpool struggle to understand it, let alone in different parts of the world.
I completely agree with you. I want to open the floor to any questions which some of the journalists here, maybe some of the fans might have. Do you have any questions for Gary? I can keep going with Gary non-stop. Tell you what, I'll come back to the audience in a moment. If you have any questions, have a think, give it a minute or two. Because I want to go back to the issue of De Gea, because we spent so long talking over the past season when I'm covering the games about De Gea, whether he deserves to be in goal. Now you said you expect De Gea to be between the sticks. Now that's Ole Gunnar Solskjaer's decision, but what do you think? Who do you think deserves to be playing in goal for Manchester United?
I think because they finished the season and got a situation whereby David De Gea will not be happy on the bench at all, and that'll become a big pressure, I think, for the club. It'll become a big pressure for Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. I also have another worry that Dean Henderson has only played really at Sheffield United last season in the Premier League, and it's very different than playing for Manchester United. The pressure on the Manchester United goalkeeper, I think it's one of the most pressurised positions in football. You know, that's a big goal to fill. You think about the stadium, the size, the scale, the scrutiny that Dean Henderson will come under, and he's never been put under that type of pressure before. He's never made a mistake for Manchester United in a big game. So David De Gea has proven over years that he can handle that. So I do think it's a bit of a precarious situation with the goalkeepers at Manchester United this season. But I would start with David De Gea, but I am a little bit nervous about how Ole handles it.
Well, there's history of Manchester United and goalkeepers. Do you think back when Peter Schmeichel stepped away from the club after winning the Champions League, going out on a high, there was that period where United really struggled to find a goalkeeper, and you were there throughout the whole process until Edwin van der Sar came along. What's going through the head of a player when you see a keeper make mistakes on a frequent basis for a club like United? I think of Massimo Taibi, and what happened with him. Fabian Barthez, great first season, seemed to not be of the same quality in his second season. Tim Howard was there, Ben Foster was there. What's your take as a teammate of the goalkeeper when they're making mistakes?
To be honest with you, it's those experiences, some of which you've just named, that are actually bringing me to the conclusions that I'm coming to now. The goalkeeper needs to have stability in the team, with the fans, with the coach, with the players, the defence. And we had Roy Carroll and Tim Howard, and we were flip-flopping between them as number one. We didn't know who the number one was going to be every single week. We had Taibbi, we had Ricardo, we had Barthez, we had Bosnich. We had so many situations where we were changing goalkeepers over a 5-6 year period, and we only really became successful again when Edwin van der Sar joined and we had consistency. So that's why I'm a little nervous about it. I've never seen it work before where goalkeepers can change positions and there is that sort of anxiety between them about who is the number one. So I'm worried about it, and I experienced it at United, and we were weaker. We were weaker for a long time without Schmeichel and Van der Sar in that period between.
Well, it's funny because not too long ago there was this thing about Spanish goalkeepers, but right now Spain's number one and number two both under pressure. So what about Chelsea's goalkeeper, Kepa? What does Frank Lampard do? Because you may strengthen the rest of the side, the rest of the team, but if the goalkeeper is a vulnerability, a weakness that can be exploited, surely Frank Lampard has to act.
He will act, and credit and more of a chance, because obviously he has come through the difficult early period, but then he was world class for 4 or 5 seasons. He was Manchester United's Player of the Year. Kepa's struggling at Chelsea. I don't think Frank Lampard fancies him. The problem they've got is they spent £70 million on him, which is just an enormous amount of money, and they won't get that back. So, and Frank Lampard has left him out now numerous times, so he's made no mistake. He's not hidden the fact that he doesn't quite like the way he's performing. So they've got a real challenge, Chelsea, with that position. And I think Kepa said he's going to fight for his spot. We'll see what happens, but I know the manager doesn't like him.
No, sorry, Gary, you spoke about that was Messi. You wanted him to join Man United, of course. There are talks of him reuniting with his former manager, Pep Guardiola. Can you maybe just tell us your opinion? If he joined the Premier League, what sort of added dimension and layer would he bring to the league and make it that much more competitive?
So important, not just for the Premier League, but if he came to Manchester, the idea of Lionel Messi being in Manchester is huge for the city, huge for the country. It would globally enhance the Premier League again from where it is today. It already has a huge following. I think it would really be a massive moment for English football in the Premier League.
What's it like for a team when they're facing Lionel Messi? Obviously you have experience to try to shut down Messi. Because if I remember correctly, sorry, go on.
I think it goes to the moment that I've lived for all my life, the moment that I've waited for. That's the reason that I play Premier League football and that I want to be a football player, to play with the best players in the world. So when I played against Figo or Zidane or Ronaldo, the Brazilian Ronaldo, these are the great moments in my career, because they were the great challenges when you had to put yourself against the best.
How much of a statement does it make if he does join the Premier League? Because when you think of the best, think of some of the greats of world football, Ronaldinho, the list could go on, Zlatan, etc. When they were coming to the Premier League, it was always what if. So many players almost joined Arsenal, for example. Zlatan only came to United when he was already in his 30s. Would this be the biggest name ever in the Premier League, do you feel?
I think it would be the biggest player in Lisbon, and no one really knew who he was. Whereas he became one of the biggest, he has become the biggest name in the world with Messi. So I think this would be the biggest signing in Premier League history. I think it would be the biggest moment. It would bring the most media attention, the most scrutiny to the league that it's ever had. I think Messi would be watched more than he's ever been watched, because obviously the Premier League, the 3 best leagues in the world. I think with Messi, he's played in Spain, obviously, which is fantastic. He's achieved great things. But I think it would be interesting to see. I'm sure he'll do great, but it would be interesting to see and intriguing to see how he would do in a different league with different rules, There's obviously a lot more tackling allowed in England than there is in Spain, so it'll be interesting to see whether he gets treated differently or whether he actually finds more space and whether he finds it easier.
I'm going to open up to the floor in just a moment. One final question. Noticeably, for me anyway, Wayne Rooney saying Messi is the better of the two. So what's your say?
I choose in different leagues, he's won in different leagues. Those Champions League wins with Real Madrid are huge. With a team that, to be fair, wasn't as good as Barcelona at the time. I just think that Cristiano, for me, is just an incredible... He's forced himself to be the best, whereas I think Messi has just got this unbelievable talent which is breathtaking, both outstanding. I can't separate them really, but because of my personal relationship with Cristiano, I would say Cristiano.
Yeah, and I know how much you value hard work. I've read your book and working your way to be a success at something. You've often talked about your brother being more talented, but you really worked your socks off. But can we just open up the floor to questions? I believe we have one right there. Okay, I'll pass you my mic.
At Man United, you've always been very defensive over your ex-colleague. You've always spoke about the need for him, for patience, for time to be given to him. And in hindsight, justifiably as well, because in the end we did get results with United. But ultimately, going into the new season, Ole has spoken very publicly about the need to reinforce. He's obviously wanted to see more players come into United. They've brought in Van der Beek, but there's a lot of speculations around whether can they bring anyone else or not. Now, from your point of view, what do you think would be a very reasonable target to set for the new season? Because obviously he's been there for a year and a half now. What's next for Ole? Where do you draw the line for Ole after this?
I'd probably say supportive rather than defensive. I think that he's only been there for one full season. The season he came, he was obviously handed the managerial role, and he was on a short-term basis with no real long-term planning. So he's had one season in the job full-time. There's no doubt this year, I think last season finishing in third in the league was a big moment for him, because I think that demonstrated some progression. I think he has to break that top two. He has to get close to that top two and challenge for the title. I think this season to get close to that top two, break it or win a trophy would be acceptable. Next season definitely, because that would then be obviously into his third season. He would have to break that top two and definitely get close to winning the title. I don't think people are expecting him here yet to win the title this season. I think what they want to see is progression, and he'll have to progress. So I think for me, he's not been given too long. He's not been afforded what would be too much money yet. He's spent money, but I think you look at the money that Jose Mourinho and Louis van Gaal spent. I think he needs that type of money to be able to get this squad right, and I think he needs 2 or 3 more this summer to be able to help him get to that point whereby they can close the gap with Liverpool and City.
Perfect. Do we have any more questions from the floor? Yes, there's a gentleman at the back. Sorry to make you run.
Then too bad for you, but I have an interesting question. No, I have an interesting question for you. Because everybody's talking about all of the teams, but nobody's talking about Arsenal. Besides getting rid of Mesut Ozil, what other ways would you, as a pundit, feel Arsenal should be taking their own strides to actually improve their horrible London team? That's all I have to say.
Wow, harsh words.
I think Arsenal, I don't think anybody's talking about Arsenal challenging for the title at this moment in time because of what Chelsea and Manchester United look far more dangerous. So I think Arsenal are in that phase whereby they're behind the top 4. I don't think anybody expects them to really challenge for the title or get close. I think success for Mikel Arteta would be to break, to kick Chelsea or Manchester United or Liverpool or City, which I don't see happening, out of that top 4. That would really be a big moment for him. So that would be an overachievement. I think Arsenal and Tottenham are in a little sort of what would be 5th and 6th position where you think that they're not going to really break the top 4, but if they did, that would be a big I think, result for both those managers this season, Jose Mourinho and Mikel Arteta. But Arsenal need better players. They need better players, better defenders. They need more consistency.
All right, Gary, this might be a bit. It's a big LED monitor, so we're going to put your face up there. We're going to invite Ruben Smith and CK, our head of sports for Astra, to come up onto the stage. Manage you concerning this issue.
I think they'll stand by him. Obviously, it's an unfortunate incident that's happened, and sometimes these things happen in football. Obviously, football players are human beings, they're not robots. and he's got involved in a situation over in Greece. But I think from what I'm seeing and hearing that it's started to settle down now a little bit. He's obviously lost his position in the England squad this month, but I'm sure he'll be back next month. But he'll retain the captaincy, the club will support him. I think what he's got involved in, to be honest with you, has happened before at Manchester United through history and other clubs, and it's not something that would mean that he would lose the armband, I believe.
All right, and I have about 4 minutes left of you, so going back again to all the managers you talked about, Mourinho, Arteta, Solskjaer, who's going to be the first among them, for this season anyway, to lift a trophy? Those that haven't actually won one. Mourinho, Solskjaer in particular, Frank Lampard maybe?
I don't know, it's how much they prioritise. Jose Mourinho has always prioritised the Carabao Cup, or the League Cup, because I think it's something that I think he sees as a catalyst for winning trophies. So he's somebody that could definitely target that trophy. Whether Manchester United or Ole Gunnar Solskjaer or Frank Lampard will at Chelsea, I'm not so sure. But I think that I would say Jose Mourinho is an outside bet for the League Cup.
Did you see the documentary on Spurs, the first 3 episodes at least? Have you watched any of it?
I've not seen the documentary yet. I haven't had a chance to sort of watch that, but I will try and get around to it.
I just want to know how accurate a depiction of that is of an actual football club, because the Man City one seemed very polished, like they had final approval on the edits, if you get what I mean.
Yeah, well, sometimes that happens. We've got one with our football club, Salford City, that we do in England, and there is an element of obviously trust between the production and the club, because you want to make sure that you don't let people down. They're getting access to areas that obviously are very sensitive areas where players feel as though it's their place, where there shouldn't be cameras, like the changing room. So I think there is an element of that, but I think any access behind the scenes is still what would be insight that we wouldn't ordinarily get.
Final question before we bid you adieu. When it comes to Salford, what if they ever get to the Premier League? Because obviously they've been doing great. You spend a lot of money in the club along with your friends. Would you have to give up your position on Sky as a pundit to be impartial? Because it'd be very hard to tear yourself away from that club.
It would. I'd love to be a pundit on Sky whilst Salford were in the Premier League. That really would be a dream. But I think, one of them. It's difficult for Salford to get to Premier League #1, and it'll be difficult for me still to be on Sky at that time, I think.
Well, dreams can come true. To be an owner of a Premier League club would certainly be an achievement in itself. My questions are done. We have one final one from the floor. So, would you like to ask one, Aisha?
Hi, Gary. I just want your opinion on this. Do you think United have spent so much time on Jadon Sancho in signing Jadon Sancho? Do you think he's worth that time and money?
Hi, I understand what you're saying. Doing a player as long as they have, then you'd like it to conclude a lot quicker and not obviously drag on like it has. So I agree with you. I think it's been a little bit clumsy by the club or by the player, thinking that they could get the deal done with Borussia Dortmund. Borussia Dortmund always want the money that they ask for, and I think that Manchester United knew what the money was. So we'll be interesting to see in the next few weeks whether something happens with that. But I have to say, it's dragged on far too long and it becomes a distraction in the end. And you hope that Manchester United have got plan B, so that if they don't get Jadon Sancho, that they can obviously make sure that they fill the gaps that they've got in the squad that they need to fill.
All right, Gary, I want to thank you very much for your time. I want to wish you all the best in the upcoming season, and we'll speak to you again very soon.
Thank you.